Yes, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. Donfred, distinguished guests of this conference of the ICD. It's not that easy to speak at the end of such a long conference day, but it's a great honor for me to speak to you, and I'm very glad to be here in Berlin today. The members of the German Bundestag are organized, as we heard, into committees, and I'm a member of the Committee for Education and Research. And so I have a special focus on education and research policy today. And actually, our work is organized into even more specialized tasks. Like all MPs, I am responsible for certain subjects for which I serve as the rapporteur. And for my parliamentary group and committee, the CDU, I'm a member of the CDU, the governing party of Angela Merkel. I'm responsible for all European education and research policies, and also for the topic of student financing. And I would therefore like to focus on education and its role for sustainable economic growth. Economic is a high priority, not only in Germany, we heard also in Bulgaria, and many governments and countries have realized that education plays a big role in ensuring sustainable growth. Sustainable means securing not only today's competitiveness, but securing long-term improvements too. And this can only be achieved by a more education-intensive society. And all emerging countries invest a lot of their resources in education. Hundreds of new universities are being built, and there's a real drive for education. But is education all about universities or high school degrees? And how can you make sure that not only the children of the rich have the opportunity for studying? I will give you my answers in two parts. First, I will focus on the dual system of vocational training, and secondly, on student financing. Vocational training versus university education, what does that mean? In Germany, we have a very successful alternative to university education. It's called the dual system of vocational training. What exactly does this mean? In Germany, training for many vocations is provided by means of a dual program of training and education. Apprentices spend 3 to 4 days a week at a company providing vocational training, where they acquire the practical skills required for the field of work. And this is done in the companies by special skilled older employees. The remaining 1 or 2 days are spent at a vocational school, where apprentices receive a theoretical grounding in their future job. And these schools are financed by the government. And what are the benefits? Apprentices receive a training allowance from the company. And on average, this is around 650 euro a month, depending on the field of work. Those who successfully complete their training are often taken on permanently as a skilled worker by the company. Moreover, if they perform well in the workplace, they also have the opportunity to train further, to become a master craftsman or a state-certified engineer, and then to rise to a managerial position in the company, or to set up their own business and become self-employment. What are the benefits for the companies? Companies that provide vocational training have many advantages over companies that do not provide such training. One significant advantage is that the companies save on the costs they would incur by having to hire external skilled workers if no training is provided. The risk of inappropriate placement of employees and fluctuation is considerably lower for skilled workers trained internally than for people recruited via the job market. Internally trained workers usually have a better understanding of the company's working process and its production and service program. And what is the impact on sustainable economic growth? There is a link between vocational training and a high level of economic, business, and individual productivity. The economic focus is only developing human resources by ensuring that there are enough workers with adequate skills and increasing their number and level of qualification. There is also a significant relationship between a low level of youth employment and vocational training. Germany, as you may know, has the lowest rate of youth employment in the European Union. It is currently at about 7.5%. In Baden-Württemberg, the regional country I'm living, we have a youth employment of only 2.8%. Coming back to what I said before, What is the advantage of this dual system of vocational training as opposed to a classic university education? First of all, it is not, of course, a matter of being opposed to university education, but of having a system that serves as a very good complement to it. And how can you create sustainable growth if 70% of young people have a university degree, but you have also an unemployment rate of 30%? The dual system of vocational education is closer to the needs of the job market and a very attractive alternative to a university education. And does this dual system serve as a model for other countries? The vocational training system in Germany is suitable as a model, but not as a blueprint. A country wishing to implement a foreign system has to adapt it to its own framework conditions. Germany Development Cooperation promotes a lot of programs designed to support the country in implementing a vocational training system. There are many projects up and running all over the world that are promoted by the GIZ, this is the German Society for International Cooperation, or even on the initiative of companies. For example, Festo in China. The company, which is a worldwide supplier of automation technology, is currently implementing the dual system of vocational training in China. This enables the company to train its own highly qualified staff and have a well-educated and trained workforce. At the same time, it means that China has more educated, trained and experienced staff, which leads to more competitiveness and more economic growth, a sustainable kind of growth. Even US President Obama mentioned that the German vocational training system as a model for the United States of America. To sum up, the German vocational training system is very attractive for many countries and, in my view, very important for competitive and sustainable economies. I hope I was able to give you a brief overview of the German vocational training system and its advantages. Now I come to the second part of my talk, student financing and its role for sustainable economic growth. I will talk about the Federal Education Assistance Act, or BAföG for short. The Bundesausbildungsförderungsgesetz, a word which can only be invented by the German bureaucracy, or BAföG, provides support for students whose families are not financially well situated. You know, we have no study fees in general in Germany, but the students have to finance their living costs. But what means this BAföG? Students from a non-academic background get the opportunity to study at university. This creates a more diverse student population and later a more diverse occupational group. Students at universities are able to concentrate on their academic career instead of having to do several jobs to finance their living costs. Students can also receive funding when they spend part of their university studies abroad. In contrast to a conventional study loan, the funding can actually be increased if necessary. The funding of the BAföG conditions don't put immediate pressure on students after they have finished university. Only a maximum of 10,000 euros of the funding received has to be paid back, unlike an ordinary student loan where the entire amount received has to be paid back. Students don't have to stay paying back their funding immediately, but can start paying back 5 years after they have finished their studies. They are also allowed to pay back the funding over a period of 20 years. In order to receive BAföG continuously, students have to pass certain stages of their university education within a certain time period. This means that students are generally more focused on their studies to ensure they receive funding for the rest of their time at the university. Receiving funding doesn't only mean that students receive money. They may also receive supportive payments for their health insurance to get discounts on their daily expenses. Unlike most available scholarships in Germany, eligibility for support via BAföG is not dependent on achieving certain grades. Once someone has worked for a certain number of years, their eligibility for BAföG is not longer based on parental income. This enables people who were initially not eligible for funding due to their parents' income to receive BAföG assistance for their university studies that is only based on their own income. You may be getting the impression that the Bundesausbildungsförderungsgesetz, to say it again, is a really complex financing instrument. And I can only say, yes, it is. But what matters is that it is successful. According to the most recent evaluation report available, Germany spent 3.3 billion euros just on BAföG funding the last year, with an average number of 630,000 students receiving BAföG in Germany. For me and many others, this is a big success story, and we should focus on improving it even further. This BAföG instrument, which is designed for students from a non-academic background or whose parents are not well off, enables us to give all young people, independent of their social background, the chance for the best training and education they can get. For me, this is another condition for sustainable economic growth. You can't have truly sustainable growth if only a few of the talented can afford an education. This leads me to my final conclusions. Education plays a very important role, if not the most important role, in achieving sustainable economic growth. I have outlined the main instruments for promoting education in my country, Germany. First, the dual system of vocational training. Education is not only about the number of people with university degrees, but also about getting educated people into the job market. A well-educated workforce is a condition for sustainable economic growth. And secondly, student financing or BAföG. A society or country must enable all young talents, independent of their social backgrounds, to study or receive an excellent training. I regard this as another very important condition for creating sustainable economic growth. I hope I have kept within the time limit. Politicians, I always talk rather a lot, so I have tried to keep my remarks briefly. This leaves more time for you, and now I look forward to hearing your questions and having a discussion with you. And I know you are waiting for the Djibouti evening, so maybe, yes, I'm interested to hear your questions. Thank you.